So for this video, I wanted to do a reaction to this series of TikToks by this one very annoying lady.
The first time I heard this, I was like, what does it mean? Now I'm a cis lady, so next Ellie, you know all of this. This is really for my sisters and sisblings. I don't know. I'm a mom, so I'm going to talk about this the way that I would teach my kids about this, okay?
So, in other words, this cis, hetero lady is going to talk down to us, the audience, of basically gay people, and tell us why we are transphobic and evil, because we have a, not a sexual preference, not a genital preference, but because we are homosexuals. Basically, that's what she's saying here, just to convert it so you understand.
I'm going to use visual aids that hopefully will not get me reported, okay? We can all agree that bodies are generally pretty similar. Sorry, the lighting is bad. But they have variants, right? Like some bodies are like this, some are like this, some are like this, you know, like Legos.
And you know, what really annoys me about this woman is that she's talking down to us and using Legos to try to represent bodies, which, sure, if you're explaining this to a 5-year-old who doesn't need nuance, sure. But the problem is this is a topic that does have nuance, and it does have a right and a wrong answer. Very simple, because some people are not compatible with other pieces. That's that simple. Some people, some Lego pieces, don't connect together because they're not sexually attracted to them, because they physically cannot be attracted to them. And, okay, you know what? I'll let her talk.
At some point, after I was given the information about gender preference being transphobic, I realized that what I was actually thinking about is how I derived pleasure from different bodies and their different body parts. Like, how do I get pleasure from this?
And again, here is this intrinsic misunderstanding of how sexuality works. Some people cannot get pleasure from certain people for the simple matter of not being attracted to them. As in, no matter what a man does, no matter how skilled he is, no matter what kind of Casanova he is, I will be disgusted the minute he touches me, because I am a homosexual, because I am lesbian, because I am a gay. So maybe a trans man I could feel attraction to and might enjoy being involved with. But again, that's a female. That is a person of the female sex. And as she is a straight woman, perhaps she could derive pleasure from the body parts of a trans woman, because that is technically still a male. But just to imply that, like, you need to not think of these people as people whom or you are attracted to or are not attracted to, but think of them as body parts that you can pick and choose from and just to derive pleasure from. That's just so juvenile, and that's so dehumanizing to think of people and sexuality in this way.
And because bodies can be altered, or people can physically do things to give pleasure that's unrelated to the variables.
This woman has kids, mind you, so she knows how sex works. She's presumably had enough of it to pop out children, right? But she somehow thinks that sex is separated from genitals. Like, I assure you, genitals are involved when you have sex. That's just how it works. That is what sex is. Like, I didn't think I need to explain that to a woman who is, 30 years old, if not older? But yeah, you do need to worry about the parts, because not everyone likes certain parts because they're not attracted to certain sexes.
Of how their bodies are created or modified, then it actually doesn't matter, like, what their genitals are.
And this right here, ladies and gentlemen, is modern day homophobia, and honestly, just straight up stupidity. Because go back to, the early 2000s, yes, homophobia was rampant, but at least then they would understand that gay people were not interested in the genitals or dating in any way, shape, or form those of the opposite sex, because that is literally the opposite of homosexuality. And yet this woman comes here to educate us on how genitals don't actually matter, because I guess when someone says your pronouns, that's what you're attracted to. Like, I talk to a guy and then he says, oh, she, her, and suddenly, oh, I'm attracted to his hairy arms and mustache and large head. Like, no, you're being ignorant, and it's on purpose too. It's like, you know, with your eyes if a person is male or female. Maybe some people slip through and you don't notice. Fine, whatever. But most people are only sexually attracted to one sex, and we can determine if we are attracted to people based off of variables. For example, number one has to be the sex you're attracted to, and then whatever else comes on top. So it's just, okay, ma'am. If it makes you feel better to lecture to us about something that doesn't affect you, go ahead.
Now, at some way down the line, as someone who is in a heterosexual relationship with a monogamous relationship with a man.
So I ask again, what right do you have to even talk about this? Because it doesn't affect you in any way. You're just lecturing people on something that will never affect you or your life because you are monogamous and you are heterosexual. You're already in a relationship and you have your 3 kids. This has nothing to do with you, and you should not be speaking over lesbians and homosexual men who this actually does affect. Just for what? Internet points? Because we all know that in real life, you're not going to go out there and have sex with trans men because you're not attracted to them because you're heterosexual. You can talk all you want, but in reality, you're not going to follow through.
I was like, does this make me a little... And you know what I realized?
You know, I'll be honest, straight people are getting a little bit too comfortable with making gay jokes. Because you wouldn't make the same jokes about the N-word, would you? You would make the same jokes about any racial slurs for a group you're not a part of, and yet we're perfectly fine to make fun of the history of gay people and insults that were historically used when beating, raping, and otherwise harming us. But, you know, it's okay. It's okay. She's a straight woman, and she wants to educate us, so let's let her.
I'd rather be a little than transphobic, and so it doesn't bother me to look at another body that is trans or queer, and say, I think I could derive pleasure and be attracted to that human being regardless.
And yet the only reason why you think you might be a little queer about being attracted is because you know that you'd only be attracted to trans women because they are male and because you are heterosexual. Because otherwise it wouldn't make sense, because if you're dating a trans man, as per your own logic, that would be you dating a man and still be a heterosexual relationship, right? No matter if they had a vagina or not. And again, this is all hypothetical for you. None of this will ever apply to you because, again, you are in a monogamous, committed relationship with a man and you're heterosexual. So what does this have to do with you? What right do you have to lecture us on this and tell us that we are transphobic for having a sexuality that is rigid and does not change? Because we're literally shifting around to the idea that if you're not bisexual, you are immoral. That if you can't be attracted to both sexes, that somehow makes you lesser or wrong. And instead of attacking heterosexual people the same way they attract homosexual people, they're just coming after those of us who are same-sex attracted and who admit to the fact that, yeah, I can't be attracted to a trans person because they don't have the sex that I'm attracted to.
Of the genitals. So, like, it's kind of weird that we are so focused on genitals. Even genitals are super variable. So, like...
Yeah, but they're really not. I mean, there's only 2 forms of genitals, vaginas or penises, and it's not weird to be concerned with what genitals your partner has if you're going to be having sex with them, because, once again, you have sex with your genitals. And some people are not attracted to all genitals, or, in a less dehumanizing way than she talks about it, to all sexes. Not everyone is bisexual, and that is fine.
That's sort of how I transitioned from thinking about genitals as the main preference. I started thinking about pleasure. So this is how I would describe it to my kids. I don't know if that's helpful. If I did it wrong, I apologize. And if I did it wrong, and if there are trans people who want to spend the time to explain it to me better so I can better prepare my kids for the world, I would be happy to hear it. So that's my thinking. I love you. Bye.
I find it so funny how in the end here, she's deferring to the trans community. She's cowering, actually. She's doing the, don't cancel me because I'm willing to learn. I'm willing to be educated after just educating people on things that does not apply to me that I have no knowledge of. And again, she explains this like she was explaining it to a child. Like, Legos actually correlate to genitals because that's not, I guess that's what she thinks gay people operate as. It's, again, circling back to modern-day homophobia, because think about how they used to characterize us. It was, oh, they're sex-crazed. You can't let them around your kids because they might be predators. And this is just a roundabout way of saying the same damn thing, that we're somehow freaks for, being attracted to the same sex, and for being aware that sex is immutable, and it's not a political thing to not be attracted to people. Like, you don't get to practice politics through your dating life. That's not how it works. But let's go ahead and move on to the next video, because she made a lot of these fuckers, and she annoys the hell out of me, so let's keep going.
LOL. No, that's actually not what I'm saying. I am saying that we can derive pleasure from lots of different ways that our bodies show up and through other ways that we interact with one another's bodies.
First off, the smarmy way that she starts that off with. And then on top of that, what she said was just, it sounds like when someone has to give a discussion in front of the class and didn't prepare, so they just say whatever word comes out next so it sounds important. That's what she sounds like, because what she's saying is that, no, this is not saying that a boundary is bad. What I'm saying is that you can derive pleasure from many different bodies and body parts in many different ways, and that's just a nonsense sentence, and it's not true. Not everyone is attracted to everything. It's really simple. But, we don't want to admit that homosexuality is real, because that might, invalidate trans people, which is, of course, the greatest faux pas ever.
And that while you do not have to engage in those interactions with people, I do expect that my children will never be violent or harmful to someone because they are hyper-focused on genitalia.
Those two things are not related. There's a difference between my children will not have a trans panic because they are upset by genitals, which, by the way, it's a whole other thing. Because, if you're not telling someone what sex you are before you have sex, and that is rape by deception, because you are not giving information that might cause them to revoke their consent. To be honest, in a way, she is saying that you have to engage with those people, because you literally just said that, you shouldn't be obsessed with genitalia, you shouldn't be able to have preferences and boundaries, because that is what she's at most saying, that I don't want my children to have preferences and boundaries if they're not attracted to people, because they can derive pleasure from many body parts. What if they can't? What if they do not want to have sex with a person because of genitals? That is not a genital obsession, that is just what sexuality is. And to somehow relate having a sexuality to trans panic, those two things are not related in any way, shape, or form. You're making an argument that makes no sense.
Where you choose to derive pleasure and with whom is really none of my business. But if we are hopeful about creating a community where trans people are not being murdered more than anybody else, in particular Black trans women,
I really super love that talking point, because the data that study came from that says that trans women are murdered the most came from one very flawed study in South America and Brazil, I believe, and it was specifically around trans prostitutes. And mind you, the murder rate in prostitution is very high no matter what. Actually, the murder rate of women is far higher than the murder rate of trans women. In fact, they're one of the safest demographics in the US, if not the world, because they tend to be upper middle class white guys. So let's try that again, because what you actually want to do, you want to protect trans people over the comfort and boundaries of everyone else, but particularly over gay people.
We need to really unpack some of the ways that we talk about our bodies.
In other words, to protect trans people's feelings, you need to change your sexuality. And you need to coddle them and make them feel accepted, even if you're not attracted to them. That's what she's saying.
So what you don't know about me is I am not only a survivor of child sexual abuse and incest, but my whole entire organization that I founded and job that I do nationally, locally, is related to the prevention and intervention and healing around the topic of sexual violence.
To be honest, that really has nothing to do with this. Because basically this is her waving her flag and saying, yes, I know that I'm straight and heterosexual, but I was abused as a child, and that somehow means that I can advocate for coercion with gay people who aren't attracted to trans people. And mind you, I know that this happens a lot to women, and I'm very sorry that it happened to her. But this does not give her the ground to stand on to lecture other people on what is okay and what is not okay for them to sexually engage with.
Never in a million years would I advocate for coercion. And shaming people is not my game.
How? How is that not your game? Because this entire little video series you've done here has literally been you acting like the Messiah, putting this information down on us plebeians who don't understand sexuality, and saying that, actually, what you're doing, it is a form of bigotry to not be attracted to certain people. How is that not shaming people?
But what I will never stop doing is I will challenge unapologetically any idea that causes more violence to people in my community. And that is what gender preferences ultimately lead to, is violence against trans people.
The number one cause of violence, of violent crime, committers of any kind of crime really, is men. So let's rephrase that. You don't want lesbians and homosexual people to have boundaries because that somehow equates to violence against trans people, despite them being not really a minority that gets beat up or murdered all that often. It's the job that makes those trans women that you guys love to refer to end up with high murder rates. Anybody who works in sex work, and I will go into sex work another day, has a higher rate of murder and sexual assault because of the nature of the job. Okay? And secondly, I am in no way excusing the trans or gay panic thing, but we have this trend of trans people trying to go stealth, which is when they do everything they can to appear cis, lying and hiding their original birth sex. And the thing is, you wouldn't be lying and hiding if you knew that person would say yes anyway. The fact that you have to hide and you have to lie and change things shows that you know this person would revoke their consent if they had this information. This is no different than having a sexual disease like AIDS or gonorrhea and not telling someone because you know that if they had that information, they would say no.
And nobody is out here caping for penises. Like, come on.
So again, let's recap. This woman is equating having a sexuality to trans violence. She is saying that not being attracted to trans people is the exact same as murdering a trans person. That's what you're saying. That is literally the argument that you are giving here. And if you actually stop and listen to what you're saying, if anyone stops and listens to these arguments, you'll see that it makes no goddamn sense. Okay? Just because I don't want to date a certain person doesn't mean they're physically harmed by it. Yeah, it might hurt their feelings, but that's not my job. It's no one's job to coddle someone else's feelings because they're part of a minority or oppressed group. I wouldn't want someone to date me just because they were white and they felt like they had an obligation to provide reparations to the black community. That is weird. And honestly, that's worse than just saying, no, I'm not attracted to you. Because again, attraction's not political. You can't use your sexuality as a form of activism.
What you are experiencing is my fucking grace.
More like your fucking stupidity and hunger for some internet attention, because obviously your life with your man and your kid is enough to fulfill you.
Okay? And I will speak over you if you are being transphobic, just like I would speak over you if you were being racist or ableist.
Funny how you didn't mention homophobia there on that list of yours.
You're wrong. And this education is coming to you free. Like, what an amazing and benevolent person.
You're giving out advice that I wouldn't ask the drunk at the bus stop for, because you honestly don't know a damn thing you're talking about. If I wanted advice on what homosexuality was or if boundaries existed, I wouldn't have to go to you for it, because first off, it's common sense, and second of all, it is a personal thing. It is. My sexuality and who I sleep with is no one's business but my own, and it's not your business how other people sleep with other people either. You like to go on and on and on about how it's not your business, how it's okay to be attracted or not attracted, and yet here you are telling people that no, if you don't sleep with trans people, you're literally the same thing as a murderer. Try again.
That I am. You should be thanking me. Also, my Venmo is in my profile. You owe me money for this consultation. I'm sure you won't pay it because historically your people steal from my people. I get it. I'm just saying, if you wanted to offer some voluntary reparations, I would not say no, because you did not fucking deserve the grace that I gave you today, or the education.
And there it is. She has a chip on her shoulder because she is black and that means she's part of one of the oppressed minorities, and that means that it's okay to treat other people with disrespect if they disagree with you politically, or on even small things. Because, of course, now in this day and age, minorities rule all, and everyone who's not a minority is scared of us in case we get offended or pull something like she's doing right here. Because what the hell do reparations have to do with you basically doing modern-day conversion therapy? You are literally spouting the same goddamn lines they use at conversion therapy camps. And you somehow think that someone disagreeing with you, with someone pointing out the flaws in your argument, means that, oh, this just somehow relates to the slavery that happened many fucking generations ago. Okay. Sure. Because here's the thing. You just wanted the last word. You wanted to say something that would get you a foothold to end this argument. Because you honestly don't have anywhere to stand on this. You are a cisgender, heterosexual woman. You aren't gay. You aren't even trans. This isn't something for you to talk about at all. You're not a scholar. This topic has nothing to do with you, and your lack of education on the topic is very, very evident. So you know what? I am so tired of people using their minority status as some kind of catch-all gotcha you can't argue back, because this is why we have all this queer bullshit going on. People just say, oh, I'm asexual, I'm queer, I'm whatever, and these things which are not discriminated against, that no one cares about off the internet, are suddenly enough to make someone say, oh no, you're part of the oppressed group, and if I speak out against you, that means I'll be in trouble. It ends conversations. That's it. We glorified minorities because of their oppression, to the extent that now just saying that you're a minority, that you're oppressed in some way, means that you can get the last word and no one can ever stand against you. Well, guess what? I'm an oppressed minority too. I'm black, I'm disabled, I'm mentally ill, and I'm gay. So, let's see. Is that enough for you? Did I get the last word now because I listed out a whole grocery list of what's wrong with me? I don't think so. I think that if you ever find this video, if any of your little friends find this video, you'll point out how I'm being horribly transphobic. But you know what? In the end, I don't care. Because people like you're going to be proven wrong in a matter of years, if not sooner. You're never going to have to actually practice what you preach. Because again, it doesn't apply to you. You don't have any say on what goes on in the bedrooms of gay people. You don't have any say on how we live our lives. So go ahead, rant on the internet. We'll continue to tear you down and tell you exactly why you're wrong. We'll continue to ignore you. And then one day in the future, you'll realize that you were actually on the wrong side of history all along. This, dear viewers, is where we part. I do apologize for the nature of this video. I was being a little bit lazy with the editing and recording. I've seen these TikToks before, but God, they make me so angry every single time. So please excuse any not cool lines that might have came out of me when I was talking here. And don't forget to leave a comment, like, subscribe, all that stuff. If you have any questions you want to ask me, I am again collecting questions for a question and answer video. So leave any of those down in the comments below. And I'll see you guys next time. Bye.